What is happening, guys? Cody Plays here, bringing you another Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel video. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a meta tier list post-Climax of the Showdown selection pack that just came out this past week. This pack introduced a lot of new stuff to the meta. It introduced Bestials, which obviously made an instant impact, some new branded support. What else did it introduce? I'm drawing a blank. Some new Sprite support, and just some other stuff throughout the course of the meta. So, a lot of things changed after this selection pack are released, and I thought it'd be a good time to update the tier list video. So without further ado, let's jump right on in. We have 6 tiers we're going to be ranking decks into today. It's going to be Tier 0, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Rogue, and UR/SRCP. So we've gotten to a point where in Master Duel there's a lot of decks. There's just a lot of decks in this game, a lot of decks that are viable. So I'm only going to be ranking 30 today. There's going to be a lot left off this tier list. If your deck that you wanted me to talk about got left off and you want me to discuss it, just leave it down below in the comment section, and I'll try to get to it as soon as possible, or I'll add it into the next tier list. So anyways, without further ado, let's jump right on in. The first deck I want to talk about is Adamantipator. So Adamantipator is in an interesting spot. It kind of pseudo got hit by the last ban list with getting the smoke grenade of the thief, or whatever it's called, banned, which basically allowed you to look at your opponent's hand and like rip a card using the Power Tool Braver Dragon combo. It doesn't have that anymore, and also the Ishizu's getting hit hurt that version of this deck a little bit. But there's so much versatility with just like Earth combo and just different ways you can play this deck that it's still kind of kicking. I might shift this around later, but right now I'm going to put this in Rogue. Just looking at like where I think things are going to land, I think this is probably going to land in Rogue somewhere, but it definitely has Tier 3 potential. But right now I'm going to leave it in Rogue. Adagnister is another deck that I'm going to put in Rogue. I would say I would put it below Adamantipator, only for the fact that its combo is so linear, and it usually does like the same thing every single game, that it's much easier to hand trap and interrupt. Hand traps aren't super popular right now, but if someone is playing a decent amount of hand traps, if people are playing the standard like Ash, Imperm, stuff like that, alongside Max C, which is just the best card in the game, it's a lot easier to interrupt a deck like Adagnister than it is Adamantipator. And the inboard isn't that much better. The inboard, the inboard in Adamantipator is way better than the inboard in Adagnister, unless your deck doesn't have an out to towers, so the Arrival. But Arrival is what makes this deck very strong. The fact that a lot of the best decks in the game don't really have an out to Arrival, so that makes this deck like definitely competitively viable. But you don't really see it very much, so I think for those reasons, and the fact that it's pretty easily to be interrupted, leaves it in Rogue. The next deck is Blue Eyes. Obviously, this deck sucks, but I thought I'd put it on here because everyone loves Blue Eyes, including me. I think Blue Eyes is awesome, but it doesn't change the fact that you should probably dismantle all those Blue Eyes that they gave you for free and you can't dismantle. Sad. But anyways, Blue Eyes did technically get some kind of pseudo support with the Bestials. Kind of, sort of, I guess if you want to call it that. But it's still like not very good, sadly. But anyways, yep, I thought I'd add it on here because everyone loves Blue Eyes. The next deck is Branded Tier. So this is going to be separate from just like pure branded, which I actually am going to rank first. I'll do pure branded first. So this is like the new branded strategy with like all the new cards, the Cartesia, the Dust Dragon, the Rinrum, all that stuff, all that fun stuff. So you would think, hey, we got new branded stuff. Clearly this is one of the best decks in the game. I actually don't think so. I'm going to put branded in Tier 3. This might shock some people. It also might not shock some people that have followed around like the TCG and stuff like that. But branded is in a really just awkward place because everybody in the game plays Ash Blossom because of Max C. And the fact that Max C is like so good against like almost everything in the game requires you to play Max C, or requires you to play Ash Blossom. And if in a meta where Ash Blossom is like super prevalent, branded just can't be the best deck, I don't think, unless the rest of the meta is just really weak. What this deck does have going for it is it can play through Ash Blossom now, But it also is coming into a meta where all the stuff that was around the same level as branded, like previously, is nowhere near as good as the stuff that's like in the game now, which we'll get to in a little bit. So even with the new branded support, and it gives you the ability to sometimes play through Ash Blossom, it doesn't give you the ability to always play through it. And when it does, it's not objectively better than the best decks in the game, which we'll get to in a little bit. Which tier 3 looks bad, but it's really not bad. It's still a very good deck, and it's still got high potential. I think it could be tier 2 after maybe another ban list, but right now I don't think it can really be ranked higher than tier 3. Now, tier limits, branded or branded tier, I'm going to put this in tier 2. The reason I'm going to put this in tier 2 is because I think this is just overall a better version than like just pure branded, because having the tier limits cards in your deck, either you're playing it primarily as a tier limit deck with a small branded package, or like a primarily branded deck with a tier limits package. Either way, I'm going to put them in the same spot at tier 2. The reason I say that is because what you can do is, even if they have the Ash Blossom for your branded play, you can still end on like multiple layers of disruption. You can still end on a Rukalos. You can still end on, you know, branded traps being set up or branded spells being set up or whatever it might be through the Cartesia lines, and like the Bestial, you know, combos you can do within the branded strategy. So I think having access to the tier limit package, even a small one, just makes the deck a lot better. Now, I might, you know, eat my words on this, and this might turn out to be completely false, because playing the branded cards and the tier limits cards together usually makes it so you're going up a little bit higher in card count, which can't hurt the consistency, which can kind of counteract everything I just said. But I think the upside is definitely tier 2, and I do think it's a tier 2 deck if people like are building it correctly and if people are playing it correctly. This honestly could be right here, but I think it is just slightly better than this version, putting it in tier 2. The next deck I want to talk about is Bestial Dragon Link. So this is another deck that I think is a little bit difficult to rank, because previously, before like Tier and Sprite came into the game, really just Tier, because even when Sprite was in the game, there was a lot of other competitive stuff, but really when like Tier came into the game, this was like a tier 2, tier 3 deck. And then it like completely fell off the map, because everything completely fell off the map basically. But now with Bestials coming back, and Bestials are basically another engine within your Dragon Link deck, and you don't need the Bestials to be like hand traps. They just need to be like dragon cards that are engine for you. And it makes this deck so much better. So I'm going to say it's tier 3. I think it's better than branded, personally. I'm also like incredibly biased. Dragon Link's my favorite deck. But I'm trying to be subjective as possible, because it does still have its flaws, and it does still run into some serious issues. Mainly the fact that the deck, the best part about Bestial Dragon Link in the TCG was the fact that Magnemite was at 3. It's at 1 here. So that seriously hurts. But also there's some other concessions that Master Duel makes compared to the TCG, which we have multiple. You know, we don't have Striker Dragon Limited. We have Striker Dragon Unlimited in this format. We also have the baby dragons, like White and Black Dragon Unlimited here. So there's different like concessions being made, and I think overall, like, this just works out to where this is about a tier 3 deck. It does have some consistency issues that I've started to pick up on, because if you're playing the 60 card variant, you're going to be running into consistency issues just inherently because you're playing a 60 card variant, and you're going to struggle to go second into Sprite and tier boards. But if you're playing the 40 to 50 card variant, like the 45 card variant, you're going to struggle with drawing too many like dead cards. Not dead in the sense of like they're just complete bricks, but garnets in the sense that you're going to be drawing your field spells. You're going to be drawing your branded spell and traps, like your branded regain, branded beast, stuff like that. Your ciphering gear driver and stuff like that. So there's some consistency issues with whatever version you pick that just don't seem to be there the higher up on the tier list you go. And it doesn't have like the top out power that a deck like branded tier has, in my opinion. It does have an incredibly powerful inboard, but I don't think it's the same level as like the branded tier inboard. Which that inboard, like if you guys haven't seen like a branded tier inboard, like it's absurd like how good this inboard is. But anyways, I'm rambling already, and we're like 5 minutes into the video. The next deck is Dark Magician. This deck sucks, just like Blue. I'm not going to waste anyone's time talking about it. This deck is just god-awful. The best part about this is Branded Fusion, and Branded Fusion is just better in like so many other decks. But it's Dark Magician, so I had to put it on here. Dinos are the next deck I want to talk about. Dinos are also in kind of a, I would say kind of a crappy place. I'm going to put them in like Rogue, but really you could put them down here. Like, you might even be able to... Clearly, they're a step above, like, these. These should honestly have their own tier. Like, anime tier. But, I'm going to put it at Rogue for now. I might move it down. Dino, like... It really sucks that Shufflers are so good. Like, the Ishizu card just being so good is so bad for a deck like this. In the fact that Tier can just play so much on your turn and just disrupt it. Tier just makes this deck like so unfortunate, to be honest. I don't know. It's not as bad as I'm making it out to be, because Dinos can still like OTK like crazy through so many inboards, and Misk is like the most broken card ever, besides like Maxi and Protoss. Those are whatever. Misk is insane, and it can still just make you like win games you shouldn't win. But it's got like some serious consistency issues, as it's always had. It's not like great into an Ishizu, like into a tier board, because they usually have Shuffler set up. So, and they usually just mill on your turn anyways to get more Shufflers and stuff like that. Like, so it's just tough. Honestly, it's just in a tough spot. But you know, maybe if we get another ban list, we could see this move back into like the tier 3 range. But I don't know. For now, I'm gonna put it in Rogue and stop rambling. The next deck is Drytron. This deck is absolute dog water. This deck sucks with Bystials in the game. Yes, we have 2 Benton, but this deck is quite literally unplayable with so many Bystials in the game. And the fact that like Herald just got limited to 1 really sucks for this. Benton at 2 is nice, but you could put Benton at 40, and this deck would still suck with Bystials being like in every deck. Which is really kind of unfortunate, because that's like the downside of Bystials. The upside to Bystials is they're really cool in a deck like Dragon and Branded. The downside is they literally just kill decks like Drytron. Exo-sister. I'm going to put Exo-sister in tier 3. The reason I think this deck is viable is because tier is so good, and also because like Dragon Link is really good, Branded's really good, and a lot of decks that use their graveyard are just really good. So having access to Shifter and like all the graveyard interruptions that comes with playing Exo-sister just makes this deck viable. But if Tier wasn't the best deck, you should just dismantle everything you have for like Exo-sister, because the deck sucks outside of Tier. Outside of like Tier 1 or Tier 0 decks existing that are like graveyard dependent and reliant, like a deck like this sucks. But that's just my opinion. I'm also like very harsh on a deck like this. Some people think this deck, like decks like these, are really good even outside of tier format. I just don't. But it's really good right now, and I'm first to admit that. Flynderese, it's right there with Exo-sister. It's not as good as Exo-sister, clearly, but it's better into all the non-tier matchups basically than Exo-sister is. Like, I think this is better than like Exo going into Dragon Link. I think it's better than Exo going into Sprite, even though it's not really that good going into Sprite. Same thing with like Branded, so on and so forth. Obviously, it's like amazing against D-Link and Branded, but yeah. Anyways, moving on. This is like a Shizu Punk Chaos Thunder Dragon pile crap. It's a crazy combo deck. I think it's probably like right there with Adamantipator. Not Adamantipator, I'm sorry, Adamantipator. I think it's basically, they're virtually the same deck, they just do it in different ways. Except now the Ishizu Chaos deck, like, well, technically all these decks can do this. You can search Protoss now with Sprend, because Sprend dump Nemesis Flag, I think it's called. It's a level 2 Nemesis guy. And then you can just Nemesis Flag, summon Nemesis Flag back onto the field with Sprite Elf, and then you can search Protoss. Like, all these different decks can just search Protoss now, which makes Sword Soul worse, but also makes like decks like this way better, because Protoss is objectively like one of the best cards ever printed. And that card is just stupid and shouldn't exist. That card's broken. But it does. Anyways, moving on to Live Twin Sprite. This is our first Sprite variant that we're going to be talking about. I think this is the worst Sprite variant currently in the game. I'm going to put it at the bottom of tier 3 because I really don't see a reason why you would play it. But if you do play it, you're just going to have good results because you're playing Sprite. But there's definitely better versions to play. Scythe locking is still good, but with Bystials in the format, it's nowhere near as good as it was because they just hit your freaking Scythe, or they hit your Live Twin cards. But there is still application for it, obviously. The next deck is Marincess. I think Marincess is a slightly worse or slightly better version of Adagnister. This is really pick'em. You can kind of choose whichever one you want. I'm going to say Marincess is slightly better because it's all waters and there's no way you can get hit at all by Bystials. Where Adagnister, there is a few lights and darks in the deck that can get hit by Bystials. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. But unfortunately, Mathmech is down here with Drytron because Bystials. All your Mathmechs are lights. So yeah. Basically, your opponent has 8, 9, 10 Called by the Graves, as opposed to the 2 they normally had. And Called by the Grave basically already FDK'd this deck. So, yeah, Mathmech kind of sucks right now. Which is kind of fine with me, because I think a lot of these cyber strategies are just kind of degenerate. But, anyways, whatever. This deck sucks right now, just because of Bystials. But it will get good when tier gets, like, annihilated one day. Which may or may not happen. Runic Naturia is the next deck I want to talk about. So, I'm gonna say you're here, I think. The reason being is because shufflers, I'm gonna say. I don't exactly know why I want to put it here, but because originally I was thinking this would probably be like top of tier 3, but now that I'm thinking about it, is it better than Dragon Link or Branded? Maybe, I don't know, maybe it is. Naturia Runic is really stupid. Beast and Barkion are really broken, and Molcrit's broken, and Runic cards are broken. They're all limited too, which does kind of suck for the deck, but alright, I'm gonna put it here. This might be wrong. It might be better than Dragon Link and Branded, but I'm going to put it here for right now. Because Naturia Runic, the reason I don't think this is better than other variants of Runic, spoiler alert, by other variants I mean like Sprite Runic and another version I'm going to talk about here in a minute, is because Sprite cards I think are just overall in their current state with the limits that they have. Basically what I'm meaning by that is the fact that Elf is not banned. I think Sprite Runic is always going to be better than Naturia Runic. Just unless you're playing like the mirror match. Like unless you're playing like Runic mirrors, you'd rather be on like Naturia Runic because then you can just beast them, and that's broken. But I think if you're gonna play a Runic variant into this meta, you should not play Naturia Runic. You should play one of the other 2 Runic variants I'm going to talk about. Well, there's 3 more I'm going to talk about, but 2 that are actually good. So anyways, moving on to Pendulum Magicians. This deck also sucks, but it's not because of Bystials or not because of anything else. It's because it just sucks. It's just not very good. And we're still waiting on Draco Slayer support, which probably should have come like 3 months ago, but it didn't. So now we're here, and yeah, it's cool, but it sucks, sadly, kind of, even though I kind of hate this deck. Anyways, moving on. Punks. So this can be like Punk Bystial or like Punk Synchron, Punk Assault Synchron, like whatever you want to call it. It's just like Punk combo in like not a 60 card variant like this one down here. Just like a normal, just like 40 card Punk variant. It's really good. I think it's tier 3. I don't think it's as good as I don't think it's as good of a combo deck as Dragon Link is. So I think Dragon Link is still like the best combo deck in tier 3. I don't think it's overall as good as Branded. And I think probably all the Runic variants are a little bit better. It might be better than Exo-sister and Flunder. But I'm gonna go with I'm gonna say Flunder and Exo are better just because these apply to the rest of the meta better, I think, than the Punk cards do. Even though Psychic and Punisher is like insane. That card is so good. The next deck I want to talk about is Pure Sprite. So, guys, we have our first tier 1 deck. Pure Sprite. It's insane. It's still amazing. You can floodgate your opponent with the little... I don't even know what the little level 1 Aqua guy is called that locks your opponent out of summoning Aquas or whatever. Or locks your opponent out of summoning anything with 1800 or higher attack. I forgot its name, and I'm not going to go look it up right now because I'm recording a video. But that little guy, or you can End of Anubis somebody with Mannequin Cat. You can do a lot of stuff with Sprite. There's so many different floodgate options you have with a deck like this that just make this deck insane. You can also just... Your end board, even without floodgates, is still like 7 interruptions. And like follow-up. It's still like stupid how many interruptions you can get with a deck like this. It can break boards very well. It plays into boards really well because you're able to play a lot of hand traps and you're able to play a lot of just like powerful cards, like powerful going second cards or hand traps or just a lot of really strong engine. Really, there's nothing bad about Sprite right now. Like, it's in a great spot. It's clearly one of the 2 best decks in the game. Rika is up next. This is tough because I think there's an argument to say that Rika's tier 3. But I don't want to do that. I want to say Rika's a rogue, like top of rogue. Because if every... Okay, listen. Rika Sun Avalon is only as good as like the person that you're playing against. Really. Because if the person you're playing against knows how to play against Rika, the deck is not that good. But if they have no idea what they're doing and they're reading half, quote unquote, I'm saying quote unquote, reading your cards as you're playing, which they're not really doing, then the deck is insane. The deck's like tier 2 if that's the case. But overall, I think the deck, like, I don't know. I just don't think the deck is like nearly as good as sometimes it looks when people are playing it, because people don't like know what they're doing against it, and people are too lazy to learn how to play against it. And I'm not saying I'm like, perfect or anything like that. I'm certainly not. I don't know how the hell to play against it sometimes. I know how to like hand trap it and stuff like that, but sometimes I don't know like the deeper interactions with the deck. But I really feel like when I hand trap the deck properly, it doesn't really do anything. I don't know, but this could be wrong. It could be tier 3 and I'm just coping. I don't know, we'll see. The next deck is pure Runic Stun. Honestly, if you're playing Runic Stun, you should probably just dismantle it, because this deck sucks. Yeah, you know what, I was gonna put it in rogue, but actually I'm just gonna put it here because this deck is just awful. Runic Stun is just terrible. There's no reason why you should play something like this. Not because it's necessarily bad, but because like you're bad if you play it. Also because it's not very good. It really struggles. Like, even though the shufflers at 1, each at 1, they still really hurt. But yeah. Anyways, moving on. Salad is the next deck I want to talk about. I think Salad is probably the worst of the 3 Cyber decks not named Circular. Mathmech, yeah, sorry. I don't know, just because like your turn 1 board sucks. Like, it's really Baguska or nothing, and that's not good. Like, if your turn 1 like optimal play, if your turn 1, that's not true necessarily. Like, Salad is very good. Salad can like put up a lot of disruptions, a lot of layered disruptions, like with all the trap cards, with Baguska, with Heat Soul, stuff like that. Like, whatever. There's a lot of different ways you can play Salad and to make like competent inboards. But if like one of your best inboard options is tier's worst inboard option, that's just not good. That's just really not good. And obviously the shufflers hurt really bad. They hurt really bad. But it plays around the Bestials, which is nice. And also this deck can still OTK like it's nobody's business. So it's got that going for it. But I still think it's rogue. Sky Striker, guys, trust me, you might like Sky Striker, but you can get a lot of URCP for that. Just dismantle it. Like, you can get so many URCP for those. It's good. You're good. Actually, there's really not that many URs in this deck, now that I'm thinking about it. But Sky Striker sucks right now, solely for the fact that Bestials are everywhere. Every deck is playing, like, minimum 4 Bestials, max 8. So, yeah, just, it really is not fun getting your, Ray banished every time you get into the graveyard. The next deck is Runic Sprite Furhire, or Runic Fur Hire in whatever combination you want to go about it. But as long as there's Runic cards and Fur Hire cards, probably with some Sprite cards as well, because that's how I would play it, and I think that's probably the best, you got a tier 2 deck. This deck is busted. You can draw like 5 cards a turn, or like 6 cards a turn, something like that with this deck. It's absolutely insane. Rex is also the cutest card ever, so it automatically gets bonus points for that. This deck's got insane follow-up. It can make an insane turn 1 board. I think it's probably the best version of Runic right now. It's what I would play if I was playing Runic, that would be for 2 reasons. The first is because I think the inboards are really good. I think the grind game of this deck is really good. I think the overall ceiling of this deck is higher than like just pure Sprite Runic. And less people know how to play against this than they do like regular Sprite Runic. So I definitely think this is a tier 2 deck. You could maybe even make the case that it's tier 1, but I don't think we've seen enough results for it to be tier 1 yet. The next deck is just Sprite Runic, and it's basically just a slightly different version than Fur Hire Sprite Runic. So I think it's right there with it. They're about on the same par. It's really like flip a coin which one you think is better. I just prefer the Fur Hire cards a little bit. The next deck is Tier Sprite. So this is like a full tier package, a full tier deck with like either like a small Sprite package or like a medium-sized Sprite package. And it just adds a lot of versatility to the deck. It adds a lot of different lines you can go. You can do a lot of different things with it, and I think it's a very solid way to play both strategies. And it's definitely tier 1 because you have literally the 2 best decks just mashed into one. And it's insane. This might even be the best deck, but I'm not going to go that far because we haven't seen it yet. Melfi Sprite. I'm going to put Melfi Sprite slightly above Pure Sprite. Not because I personally think it's better, but because since the new set release and the new ban list and all that stuff, it has performed way better than Pure Sprite. Having access to Herald, even at the cost of like 2 bricks in your main deck, they're not really bricks, but like having the cost of like 2 pseudo bricks in your deck and like 2 to 3 extra deck spots being taken up, you're able to put a floodgate up that's almost unbeatable if you're playing against Tier. Like Tier almost cannot beat Herald. Untargetable Herald is really insane. So I think it's definitely a tier 1 deck. It's either the best or second best version of Sprite right now. Spiral is up next. This is right here with Drytron and Mathmech as just dismantle fodder because Bystials just absolutely, run through this deck. It's really bad. It's really bad. I was playing against the other day, and this guy goes, okay, activate Illusion of Chaos, search out Magician of Souls, send Master Plan, summon Quick Fix, search Big Red, activate Big Red, target Master Plan. I used a Bystial, he surrendered. That's how most of your games are going to go, because this deck sucks into Bystials. Just like this deck, just like this deck, just like this deck. They might be worse than Dark Magician. I'm just kidding. They're not worse than Dark Magician. But they're really not good right now because of that stuff. Next up is Sword Soul. Sword Soul's great. Like Sword Soul's Sword Soul's a rogue deck. I mean, it's either rogue or bottom of tier 3, but it's got access to Protos. It can play Bystials. It can play Shifter. What more do you want? And like, honestly, you know what? I'm gonna cope. It's tier 3. It's right here with Flu and Exo-sister. It's definitely not. Yeah, you know what? Screw it. It's right here with Flu and Exo-sister as counters to the meta. It's probably really copium, but I'm going to go with it anyways because I love Sword Soul. Kind of, except for Protos. And Normal Summon Moye. I hate both those things. But yeah, Sword Soul's great. It's got so much versatility. It can play whatever hand traps you want. It can play whatever hand traps you want, and it can just adapt so well to almost any meta that you're in that you can never really go wrong with it. Next up is, I'm going to save that for last. Next up is Tri-Brigade Sprite. So, I think Tri-Sprite is phenomenal. I think it is probably the 4th or 5th best way to play Sprite, depending on like whether you're counting this as like one way or like this is one way or whatever. I think Pure and Melfi are better, and I think the Runic variants of whatever Sprite you're talking about are better. But then after that, I think Tri-Brigade is amazing. I think the Tri-Brigade adds so much diversity and so many options to the Sprite strategy that it allows you to kind of be in that scenario where you're like, my opponent does not know what to do against this. And also, it makes the best inboard out of all the Sprite variants. Like, I think, and I don't even really think it's close. You can still end on all the normal Sprite interruptions and Revolt. Now, the only thing making it so this deck is not tier 1 in my eyes, is the fact that we don't have Pit Knight. If we get Pit Knight early, I think this might be the best version of Sprite. That might be a little copium, but I think that could easily happen. Now that I'm looking at this, should this be down here? Should this be down here? Yeah, you know what, I'm going to put that down there. Scratch everything I said before about this deck being like way better than regular branded. It is better, in my opinion, than regular branded. But I don't think it's as good as all this other stuff in tier 2. And I think Dragon Link is really, really good. But anyways, moving on to the last deck. We got Tier Limits, just pure Shizu tier. This deck's broken. This deck's just so stupid and so much fun to play and so not fun to play against. And sometimes fun to play against. This deck's just broken. It's clearly the best deck in the game still. With, Tier Sprite right there with it. I think Tier Sprite might actually be the best deck in the game. But until we see more results out of it, I think we still have to say regular tier is the best deck. And then I think Sprite is just a little bit worse. Like, a little bit worse. Like, if you got like 2 basketball players standing next to each other and one of them's 7 feet tall and the other one's like 6'10", they're almost the same height, but they're really not the same height. That's kind of what like Sprite and tier are like. So, yeah. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's tier list video. Let me know in the comment section down below everything I got wrong, because I know you're not going to let me know what I got right. And yeah, sorry I was gone for so long. I was kind of busy doing other stuff than playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For school reasons and personal reasons and tier reasons. Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in the video. Like I said, let me know in the comment section down below what I got right, what I got wrong, and what other videos you'd like to see in the future. But have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.